It seems to me that when a man cannot provide the whole pie, he will run away and hide in shame. On the other hand, if a single mom only manages to get one piece of the pie, she will gladly share that little and then hope to find the rest of the pie. When I was 6 years old, I remember my social studies teacher asking the class, "Who is the head of the family?" Some of the kids answered, "It's the dad." And my teacher answered, "That is correct." I was so confused because at my home, it seemed to be the opposite. My dad was addicted to alcohol. He used to beat me up and my siblings whenever something did not go well in his life. He never paid for our tuition or our needs. And lucky for me, my mom actually had a strong career and paid for everything in the house. So in my eyes, my mom ran the house, and psychologically, she was the leader to me. So naturally, as a child, I hated my father with all of my soul. But something which is really interestingly weird happened when I was in high school. I found that there were many kids whose fathers behaved exactly like mine. There was this one girl called Jessica. Of course, it's a fake name. Her father also abandoned the children and refused to take care of any of their needs. So she already lied to her friends, saying that her older brother was her dad. But actually, one of the friends found out, and then the whole group bullied her into calling her real dad. And then when she called, the guy actually picked up the phone, couldn't remember her, and then after some time, he asked her, "What do you want from me?" And then now there's another friend of mine, we can call him Bob, fake name, of course. Bob's father is unique because for him, he actually struggled and paid all of the children's upkeep. But as a child, when Bob was young, the mom left the dad because of the dad's issues. Now the dad is a loner and is alienated from his family. Bob has actually never met his father's biological side. Now, unfortunately, a few years ago, Bob's dad got a stroke, and currently Bob is the only son that actually takes care of the dad. The dad watches TV all day and refuses to do physiotherapy so that he can get better and get back on his feet. So after reading many psychological books and seeing this sad story happen to many men, I started to think and ask myself, despite the fact that maybe we hate all of these men and keep blaming them, what if they're the symptoms of societal disease? So in this video, I will go through the general path that men follow to their downfall, and we will understand the internal and external causes of this downfall, why men are lagging financially, why men find it hard to form lasting relationships, why men are remaining emotionally immature, and which psychological lessons these men can learn from single mothers who seem to have a cure for this societal sickness. And that leads us to chapter 1, the downfall of men. But before I show you the general path that men follow to their downfall, I want you to first understand this story or these studies from Richard Reeves and Marie-Louise von Franz, who was a Swiss psychologist. Once you understand these two, you will easily understand the later parts of this essay, or in this case, video. So Richard Reeves is the author of the book, Boys and Men: Why the Modern Male is Struggling, Why It Matters, and What to Do About It. This book discusses the complex issues of male inequality in modern society. He found that in education, boys are lagging behind girls in most advanced economies. And there is a huge gap in literacy and college enrollment rates. For example, in the United States, women earned 57% of the bachelor's degrees that were awarded in 2016, 2017. And now this is not a bad thing, but it is showing something. This educational disparity means that women are actually going to have a higher chance of becoming economically successful compared to men. Finally, there is a dad deficit in the USA. About 1 in 4 people live without their father. The other 3 out of the 4 definitely have a high chance of having a father who is a poor father figure. This lack of a father figure can definitely injure men. But before I get into the general path of doom that these boys will later follow, let us first visit Marie-Louise von Franz, who discovered and beautifully wrote about this mental disease. It's called the Puer Aeternus. There are eternal teenagers among us who refuse adulthood and fear commitment. The Latins used to call them Puer Aeternus. Marie-Louise von Franz studied the idea of Puer Aeternus in her research on Jungian psychology. The Latin word Puer Aeternus means eternal child or eternal boy. In Jungian psychology, It refers to an archetype of a person who is always a teenager, and no matter what age that they are, this person does not want or cannot take on adult responsibilities. And they would rather live in a world of fantasy than deal with the real world of adulthood. The Puer Aeternus has a strong fear of commitment, which directly impacts their ability to maintain long-term relationships, including marriage and parental responsibilities. This fear can result in men opting out or abandoning relationships, leaving children behind without a father figure. The eternal child is unable or unwilling to take on responsibilities typical of adult life, such as stable employment, long-term relationships, and societal obligations. This trait can manifest in the refusal or the inability to take on the role of the provider or caregiver in the family. This behavior comes from a deep-rooted fear of commitment and anxiety about not living up to the expectations or losing one's sense of freedom. This Puer Aeternus avoidance can lead to situations where the father is physically absent or emotionally disengaged from his children, contributing to the experience of fatherlessness even if the father is physically present. Instead of dealing with the real world, the eternal child would rather live in a world of dreams and possibilities. It can show up as having unrealistic goals, daydreaming all of the time, and choosing imaginary escapes over real accomplishments. This behavior is a result of the desire to escape what they perceive to be the boring and challenging aspects of adult life, as well as their fear of testing their own limits and the fact that they will eventually grow older. The Puer Aeternus is emotionally immature, which makes it challenging for him to deal with the complexities and the demands of parenting. He is emotionally underdeveloped, which makes it challenging for him to handle adulthood. Emotional immaturity can hinder a man's ability to connect with his children on a meaningful level, potentially leading to detachment and disengagement from the family unit. Despite a desire for independence, the Puer Aeternus often remains dependent on other people, including his parents or partners or friends, for emotional and financial support. This dependency can invert the traditional parent-child dynamic, with the child perceiving the father as another child that's supposed to be taken care of rather than a figure of authority and support. And that leads us to the general deadly path that men follow. We will later look at the potential cure for this, but we must first understand the deadly path that I've seen many men take. These men should not take all of the blame, but unfortunately, they normally bring down other people with them. With all of this in mind, this is a simplification of the trend that I have seen. The man is born. He is given a lot of hope as a child and has great aspirations in life. He has a 25% chance of being fatherless, so it is likely that he lacks a father figure to learn from. The other 75% may have a father, but there's also a very high chance that their father figure will be absent psychologically or may be the cause of their child abuse. The 75% who are lucky to have a father must also escape from something called the mother complex. A mother who is overly protective or controlling can inhibit her son's ability to develop independence and self-reliance. Unlike women, men must escape the love and comfort that their mom provides and go into the world on their own. Many of us men fail at this stage. When a man grows up, he has to understand that life is difficult. He will inevitably fail, as all men do, whether successful or unsuccessful. He has to fight, but unfortunately for him, men are seen as protectors and must always provide for those that they take care of. His family and life will make demands on him, so he has to be courageous and face every obstacle. If he doesn't, he may seek maladaptive ways to help him escape from this pain, such as developing an addiction to work, porn, or alcohol to help him escape. Or he may escape in his mind and avoid all responsibilities, as it is all too difficult. His emotional immaturity makes it hard for him to connect deeply with his partner or his children. His family will have demands on him and expect him to have figured life out but that may trigger the neurosis or deep-rooted fear that he is a failure and is unable to provide. So consciously or unconsciously, I see that many men become ashamed or angered, so resort to avoidance. Many men may use addiction, estrange themselves from the family, or use anger or some other psychological tricks to escape this uncomfortable feeling or situation. So these short-term solutions enslave the man in the long run. He pushes his family away, therefore he is likely to be alienated from him. I've seen this in my own family and many other families. So now, as he grows older, he becomes physically and mentally weaker, of course, as time comes on. And if he has not worked on his issues, he will still be psychologically trapped in his pain, but unfortunately, he will be lonely as he has already pushed everyone away. All of this time, he will always suffer from his mental neurosis or mental health issues. But then here is the interesting part. Despite the fact that single moms face equally harsh conditions in life, why is it that they don't suffer from these issues? Furthermore, I have seen many men who may not be considered successful on the outside, but have managed to keep their families happy and well connected emotionally. And I always ask myself, how come they don't seem to suffer from these issues? What is their secret? And I think I found one. Recently, when I went to Uganda, which is my home country, something came to my mind while I was visiting one of my grand aunties called Sarah. Now, for context, I originally didn't like this auntie because when I was young, I got into a car accident on my bicycle, and she made up stories that I had a bicycle business and I used to ride people around, and that I would make them sit on the front crossbars on the bike and they would pay me to ride them around the village. And I was like, man, how can anybody believe this woman? So we already had our own beef. Well, I'm the one that had the beef and she doesn't know. Back to the story. So this Aunt Sarah recently got a huge burn on her leg. The water burned her foot when she was trying to get it off of a stove, right? And while I was staring at her pink burnt skin, which is actually supposed to be normally black in color, it occurred to me that in addition to my mom and I, there were actually 5 other women there visiting her, And then I got this epiphany. Now, this particular auntie is not the richest in the world, and many of the single moms there have struggled to pay for their children's upkeep. They were actually, in fact, way poorer than those fathers that I talked about, but they stuck to their duties. And I kept asking myself, why didn't they leave their kids behind and go live a simpler life? How come they didn't cut everybody off like the fathers did? It then struck me that the first thing that they did have was a community, another set of minds to support them and refine their thoughts. Despite reading a lot of books and learning a lot, I have realized that ideas that run through my brain alone are never the best ideas. I rarely have brilliant ideas on my own. Instead, other people with different experiences help me review and refine my great ideas. The community that those ladies had gives them hope in tough situations. And that feeling that they're not alone keeps them going way longer than the men who normally go alone into their endeavors. The fact is that hope and courage are the 2 most important gifts for human. For a man, life is hard. He must overcome himself and he must overcome society expectations. Despite the fact that we think that each generation is different, every generation has chicken shit that they must overcome. A man's purposefulness is his lifeline. That is one of the main things that the society judges him on. His well-being in society is tied to that perception of being purposeful. Therefore, it is understandable why he must protect this at all costs. When he fails, he feels like he has to run away and hide. But that hiding makes him weaker as he cannot be strong on his own. He needs a community to shape his mind and ideas on life. He needs a community in case he breaks down, and they can temporarily give him hope and courage until he gets back on his feet. He needs a community to give him hope when the tough times come, as they will always do. So I suggest that men always have a group of other men as close friends and always keep in touch and share their ideas and issues with each other. I realized that in situations where men in Uganda had failed at providing, they ran away from their families. And this is where courage comes into play. We men must learn from women or the single moms who share the little that they have. It seems to me that when a man cannot provide the whole pie, he will run away and hide in shame. On the other hand, if a single mom only manages to get one piece of the pie, she will gladly share that little and then hope to find the rest of the pie. Men need to find this sort of courage. Now, the fact is that not all men run away or face all of these issues. Some resort to other measures of escape. To fully understand why and how this happens, check out this video that I made on the human psyche. Thank you.